The drama surrounding Pam Bondi's courtroom confrontation begins with a judge attempting to silence her with a $50,000 contempt fine after she spoke out publicly. But Pam, a former legal heavyweight turned semi-retired consultant, didn't just accept the penalty. She flipped the narrative in seconds. Standing in a tense Tampa courtroom, she calmly pulled out a manila folder marked with red tabs and, with it, dismantled the illusion that the judge had total control. This folder wasn't some theatrical prop. It was a carefully curated stack of documents, each one threatening to unravel years of alleged judicial misconduct. Pam's calm demeanor was a warning in itself. She wasn't intimidated, and she was prepared to go all the way. Judge Corbin, the man at the center of the controversy, had accused her of violating a gag order. Yet Pam asserted that she hadn't discussed the case directly. She'd only spoken about patterns she had observed behind the scenes. Her statements weren't random allegations. They were supported by emails, affidavits, and testimony that hinted at something deeper: a judicial system corrupted from within. The folder included a notarized affidavit from Corbin's own former assistant claiming that she had been instructed to withhold a file from evidence. The case in question was about a nurse named Jonas McNeil who had sued a hospital over a patient's preventable death. His original complaint, which included serious accusations against administrators, had allegedly been scrubbed from the official record. What remained was sanitized, deliberately cleansed of the most damning claims. Pam's interest in the case began with a phone call from Leah Holcomb, a colleague from her days in the state attorney's office. Leah had sent her a voicemail, a recording of two people discussing a missing sealed document. What followed was a rabbit hole of hidden evidence, purged testimonies, and judicial sleight of hand. Pam wasn't on a mission for fame. She was compelled by what she saw as a gross miscarriage of justice. She tracked down former clerks, assistants, even the nurse himself. Each person revealed more evidence that the court had been manipulated. The same names, the same law firms, the same judge. It was a pattern. She discovered that the hospital administrators implicated in the McNeil case weren't the only ones protected by courtroom redactions. Other civil and criminal cases displayed similar erasures. There was a network at play, one that operated quietly, efficiently, and with the intent to protect institutions over people. Witnesses and insiders came forward, some reluctantly, some anonymously. A paralegal recalled being pushed out for raising concerns. A retired bailiff spoke of inappropriate meetings between Corbin and hospital lawyers. Yet, few were willing to go public. The fear was palpable, of losing jobs, reputations, maybe more. And the pushback against Pam was swift. Her speaking gigs vanished. Her name disappeared from legal panels. Even her trusted accountant suggested she lay low. A journalist contacted her, suggesting the narrative being fed to the press was that Pam was bitter, grasping for relevance. But when Pam asked if those sources had mentioned the McNeil case, the journalist admitted they hadn't. That silence spoke volumes. When she received the summons for contempt, it was rushed, vague, and clearly orchestrated. Pam didn't show up with lawyers, just her facts, her composure, and the folder. During the hearing, she methodically laid out her evidence: emails, affidavits, court transcripts. She wasn't just defending herself. She was indicting a system. Her motion wasn't to dodge the fine but to force a judicial review of Corbin's conduct in the McNeil case. She stated flatly that if the court didn't act, she'd file in federal court. That got attention. Judge Corbin didn't rule immediately. Instead, he delayed. It was a tactical pause, a test of her resolve. Outside the courtroom, she stayed on the offensive. She gave interviews, made statements, and continued collecting evidence. Her words caught fire, and not just locally. Legal blogs and national commentators began paying attention. A former judge tweeted that the allegations deserved urgent review. And then finally, a crack in the armor. Florida's Judicial Qualifications Commission announced an internal review of Corbin's case history. It was the first institutional acknowledgement that something might be wrong. Yet the news cycle moved on quickly. Pam didn't. She kept gathering pieces. More emails, transcripts, depositions. She'd become a repository of truth for people who'd been pushed aside. A former legal intern, a clerk, a court reporter. Each added a layer to the growing body of evidence. Still, the court responded with silence. 11 days after her motion, she received a flat denial. No reasoning, no rebuttal, just a signature: Roger C. Corbin. Pam didn't shrink from that denial. She called a press conference and read the statement aloud. She wasn't theatrical. She was measured and direct. Her words carried the weight of conviction. This is not about revenge. It's about whether our courts answer to truth or to themselves. That speech, captured on a short clip, began circulating online. It didn't go viral, but it hit the right ears. Legal figures from outside the state took notice. A podcast host invited her on. A retired judge demanded further scrutiny. It wasn't just about Tampa anymore. Then came a quiet victory. The JQC announced it would assign an out-of-state panel to examine Corbin's record. No one danced in the streets. No one declared her a hero. But for Pam, it was confirmation that she hadn't stood alone. Leah, Jonas, Denise, the anonymous tipsters, they had risked their safety, their careers, to stand with her. The institutional rot had been propped up by silence, and all it took was one person to challenge it for the structure to start trembling. Pam went back to her quieter life in Clearwater, consulting here and there, walking the beach in the mornings. But she kept a close eye on court records. Old habits die hard. Then one day, a note arrived, handwritten, unsigned, from a juror in the McNeil case. They'd never seen the original file. They'd always wondered why. It was the validation she didn't expect but deeply valued. Pam never got a public apology from Judge Corbin. He didn't resign. The investigation continued quietly in the background. But something had changed. The story wasn't about one woman's crusade. It was about the power of truth to disrupt systems designed to silence it. Pam had been threatened, fined, blackballed, but she never folded. She leaned into the storm. She once told a young law student, "Your reputation won't be built on how many cases you win. It'll be built on how many truths you don't run from." That line now felt like prophecy. Because in the end, it wasn't just a folder or a speech that moved the needle. It was Pam's refusal to accept a lie. And in a world where power too often escapes scrutiny, that refusal meant everything. If there's a lesson in her story, it's this. The system depends on people staying quiet. When even one person speaks with conviction, others find their voices too. The truth isn't always enough to win, but it's always enough to matter. Pam Bondi didn't just challenge a judge. She reminded a courtroom, and the people beyond it, that the law serves no one if it doesn't serve justice.